This question comes from Rohit Belani. Berkshire bought a substantial position in Taiwan Semiconductor and, contrary to its normal holding timeline, sold almost the entire position within a few short months. While you cited in a CNBC interview that geopolitical issues were the catalyst, these issues were seemingly no different when you acquired that stock. So what else, if anything, changed in those few months and prompted the firm to offload close to $5 billion worth of Taiwan Semiconductor shares?
Taiwan Semiconductor is one of the best managed companies and important companies in the world. And there is not, and I think you'll be able to say the same thing 5 or 10 or 20 years from now. I don't like its location, and I've reevaluated that. I mean, I don't think it should be any place but Taiwan, although they will be obviously opening up chip capacity in this country. And actually, one of our subsidiaries that we got in Alleghany is participating in their Arizona construction activities. But it's a question of, we would rather have the same kind of company, and there's nobody in the chip company, there's no in the chip industry that's in their league, at least in my view. And the man that was a 91-year-old or so that connected with it, that I think I played bridge with, and in Albuquerque, and marvelous people, marvelous company. But I'd rather find marvelous people. I won't find it in the chip industry, but marvelous people and marvelous competitive position and everything. I'd rather find it in the United States. I feel better about the capital that we've got deployed in Japan than in Taiwan. I wish it weren't so, but I think that's a reality, and I've reevaluated that in the light of certain things that were going on. Charlie?
Tell them the story of the Japanese investment. That should be told again. That's a nice story.
Well, it was pretty simple. I mean, back when I started, other people were going through Playboy, and I was going through Moody's, basically. And there's a movie out called Turn Every Page, which I saw again for the second time a couple of days ago, Lizzie Gottlieb, and I recommend everybody in this world watch that, because I turned every page in the past. And I did it for thousands and thousands of pages in Moody's, and I did it at the Department of Public Utilities in Boston. I did it in the insurance department. You just kept turning pages. Well, that goes on for a while, but now we need big ideas in order to find things. And what was your question, Charlie?
Tell them about the Japanese.
Well, the Japanese thing was simple. I mean, I like looking at companies. I like looking at figures about companies, and here were 5 very, very substantial companies, understandable companies. Most of them, maybe all of them, we'd done business with in a dozen different ways. If you go a couple miles from where this place is, our last coal generating plant was built by one of the companies. So here they were sitting as a group where they were earning, we'll say 14% on what we were going to pay to buy them. They were paying decent dividends. They were going to repurchase shares in some cases. They owned a whole bunch of businesses that we could understand as a group, although we didn't mean we had deep understanding on any, but we seen them operate and everything. There wasn't anything to it. And at the same time, we could take out the currency risk by financing in yen, and that was going to cost us 0.5%. Well, if you get 14% on one side, 0.5% on the other side, and you've got money that, forever, and they're doing intelligent things, and they're sizable. So we just started buying them. I didn't even probably tell Greg until maybe 6 months after we'd gotten going. And then when we hit 5% in all of them, we announced on my birthday and at 90th that we owned over 5%. And recently went over for the first time to visit with them, and we were more than pleasantly surprised, delighted with what we find there. And now we own 7.4% of it. We won't go over 9.9 without their agreeing, and we sold another 164, whatever it is, billion of yen.
Would have done for us if we only had $5 billion or something, and it made $10 billion simply in that way.
Yeah.
We would look like heroes. Now 10 billion just sort of disappears as a little dot in Berkshire's reports.
But it's fun.
And it is fun, and it is $10 billion.
And Charlie says it keeps me out of bars whenever I talk to him about it. And I probably talked to Charlie about this the year after I started. But who knows? I mean, I knew he'd like it. I mean, obviously, we tried to do every dollar we would do. We could only do about 10 billion. Yeah. Well, not even quite that much.
Yeah.
But we are 4 or 5 billion ahead plus dividends, and we got a carry that's terrific, and they welcome us, and they should welcome us, but we love it the way they're operating. We're not there to tell them what to do in the least. So we did, but we did say we never go over 9.9, and we mean it, and they know that we'll be true to our word. And I went over there partly to introduce Greg to those people, because we're going to be with them 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, and they may occasionally find something that we can do jointly, and they look forward to doing that, and we look forward to it. And in addition, we have some other operating businesses in Japan. So, Greg, do you have anything?
The only thing I would add is that, one, as Warren, you went over there, it was to build the trust with these Japanese companies, because we do hope there's long-term opportunities. But fundamentally, as you highlighted, they're an incredible, they've been a very good investment. I'd also highlight the 5 meetings we had were really quite remarkable. I mean, these companies, the culture and the history around it, and how proud they are, there's just moments of learning from them. So it was just a great experience to spend really 2 days with the 5 companies.
And an issue that we intended to be 56 billion of yen that we were issuing and selling turned out to be 164.4 or something like that. Everything's worked so well, and as Charlie says, it doesn't move 500 billion of net worth that much. But this one is, it will keep adding over the years to Berkshire's value with this very widespread, probably $400 or $500 million a year. And we'll just keep looking for more opportunities. And Japan, Berkshire is the largest borrower corporate borrower outside of Japan that exists. And we didn't set out to be that, but it's turned out that way, and we're not done. I mean, in terms of what may come along there, and we have some direct operations there, as I mentioned. And we've got some really wonderful partners working for us, and I don't have to do anything.
Well, there's been some tension in the economic relationship of the United States and China. I think that tension has been wrongly created on both sides. I think we're equally guilty of being stupid. If there's one thing we should do, it's get along with China. And we should have a lot of free trade with China in our mutual interest. And I just can't imagine. It's just so obvious. There's so much safety and so much creativity that's possible think of what Apple has done by engaging in a partnership with China as a big supplier. It's been good for Apple and good for China. That's the kind of business we ought to be doing with China, and more of it. And with everything that increases the tension between the two companies is stupid, 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 and ought to be stopped on each side. And each side ought to respond to the other side's stupidity with reciprocal kindness. That's my view.
And it creates one enormous problem, of course, which is that you have the two superpowers of the world, and they know they have to get along with each other. Either one can destroy the other. And they're going to be competitive with each other. But part of it is trying, always in a game like that, is trying to judge how far you can push the other guy without them reacting wrong. And, if either side is a bully in some ways, they can get away with it to an extent because the alternative would drive them both into destruction. But if they push it too far, they increase the probability that something really does go wrong. So it's it's one of those game theory dilemmas. But you really need the leader of both countries, and you need the populace to understand at least the general situation in which these countries are going to operate over the next century, and know that some leader that promises too much can get you in a hell of a lot of trouble. And that you've got one kind of a system that gets its leader one way, and you got another system that gets its leader another way. And keeping either side from trying to play the game too hard, and thinking the other side will go along, it's like playing chicken, and driving toward a cliff. So it is, if you got any diplomacy skills, persuasive skills, or anything like that, you really want people that will convince the other country as well as his own or her own country that this is what we're engaged in. We've got to do it right. We won't give away the store, but we won't try and take the whole store either. We're just at the beginning of this, unfortunately. We've learned what the situation was. It used to be the Soviet, and mutually assured destruction was our policy then, and that kept a lot of things from happening, but it also came with a very, very, very close call with Cuba. And these are not, these are different games than existed hundreds of years ago. You could, Britain might rule the seas, or France or Spain, but now you're playing with a game that you can't really make a huge mistake in. And I think that should be, the better that's understood in both countries, the more the leaders feel that their citizenry does understand that, the better off we'll be. And that a lot of demography, or a lot of inflammatory speaking, but a lot of authoritarian action. It all carries its dangers, and the world has stumbled through the years post-1945 with a lot of close calls in the nuclear arena. And now we've got pandemics, and we've got cyber and a whole bunch of other things. So we've got more tools of destruction than the world's ever had. And it's imperative that China and the United States both understand what the game is and understand that you can't push too hard. But both places are going to be competitive, and both can prosper. That's what really is. That's the vision that is out there, that China will have a more wonderful country. The United States will have a more wonderful country. And the two are not just compatible, they're almost imperative in terms of what's going to happen in the next 100 years or so. And I think that the leaders of both countries have got an important job in having that understood and not to do inflammatory things. And we'll see whether the luck that has taken us from 1945 to present holds out, and I think we can affect, to some extent, that luck.